Hello and welcome to my channel, I Went to Lose Gaming. Since ZhongLi is dropping really soon, I wanted to prepare for him, so I did this analysis. In this video, I'll be showing you his theoretical DPS potential and how I plan to build him. Quick disclaimer, keep in mind that ZhongLi isn't even out yet in the States, so everything in this video is speculation based on the currently available information. The multipliers I'll be using in this video are from Honey Hunter. First, let's get some basic definitions out of the way. Your main carry, or carry as I'll be referring to it often throughout this video, is your primary source of damage. This character's job is to be on the field a lot and to do lots of damage with his or her abilities and especially normal attacks. Now support characters, they have many roles, but really they can all be simplified to just a single role, and that is to somehow enable your main carry to do more damage. This can be through healing to allow your main carry to stay on the field, shields that allow your carry to sponge up hits that they normally wouldn't be able to, buffs and elemental reactions to boost their damage, and breaking enemy shields. In the end, regardless of how your support does it, their job is to just make your carry do more damage. So, to decide how I would use my limited resources on ZhongLi, I was really curious about ZhongLi's potential as a main carry. We'll be using this little tool that I made, the Genshin Damage Maximizer. And this little web app utilizes a brute force algorithm that generates all potentially best artifact stat combinations until the maximum damage combination is reached. For example, if we have a character Klee with the 5-star weapon, Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, and we have, all these settings, and we have 4 stacks of it up at Refine 1, then all you have to do is click on the poo, and it will calculate the maximum average damage, and it will try to optimize the stats based on the maximum elemental average damage in this situation, because that's what we have selected. To add set bonuses, all you have to do is click on this, and then you can punch in, for example, 3 stacks of Crimson Witch of the Flame right here, and you just click maximize damage, and there you go. So it will update your stats, generate the 5 artifacts and their substats in order to reach this maximum average damage number. So we'll be using this tool to analyze ZhongLi's damage potential and compare him to a character like Klee. Now another quick disclaimer, I'm going to be the first to admit that this algorithm is far from perfect. It's something that I built pretty quickly and very recently. However, at least for me, it's better than nothing in terms of determining whether or not I think ZhongLi would be a good carry. And the reason why I'm comparing him to Klee is that we all know Klee is one of the top DPSs in the game, along with Keqing and Diluc. So if ZhongLi does compete or exceed Klee, then we know that ZhongLi will be a very good carry. And I also happen to have the most complete information on Klee since I use her the most. Let's start off with a quick analysis of ZhongLi's normal attack. Looking at this basic attack clip, we can see that it takes 131 frames to execute with a dash cancel. Now this is 5 button presses of his normal attack, which does 342.5% skill damage at level 9, and just in case you're wondering, each frame is 1/60th of a second, and we'll be using that to calculate his DPS. For Klee, we'll be using the 2-hit hop cancel. Now while it's not necessarily her best normal attack DPS option, I found that it's the most consistent. So I know the machine gun walk can potentially do a little bit more damage, but for the average person and their inputs, it's likely that this attack will be doing more DPS overall. So this attack takes 65 frames and does 274.1% skill damage at C1. So now that we know all this, let's take this information to my Damage Maximizer web app, and we'll punch it all in for ZhongLi. And we'll start off with the 5-star weapon, the Primordial Jade Winged Spear. Now for 5-star weapons, I'll be using Refinement level 1, and for 4-star weapons, I'll be using Refinement level 5. We'll also assume that he has the 7 stack bonus of the Winged Spear, and the skill multiplier is 342%, so we punch that in real quick, then we show the additional stats. This is where we can input the artifact set bonuses. And we'll give him the Gladiator set, which has an 18% attack boost and a normal attack bonus damage of 35%. Next, we select to maximize the physical damage, and we click Maximize. And we get an average physical damage of 20,920. Let's punch this into the spreadsheet real quick, where we will have all the characters' DPS values so we can more easily compare. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the Vortex Vanquisher, the Battle Pest weapon, Deathmatch, at Refined 5, with just one enemy nearby. And now for the weapon that you guys are probably waiting for, the 4-star Crescent Pike. Now at Refined 5, every single hit from the Crescent Pike does an additional 40% skill damage as physical damage. Now unfortunately this does not scale with the Gladiator 4-piece set bonus, so instead we should consider the Bloodstained Chivalry 2-piece as well as the Gladiator's 2-piece to maximize damage. So you can see how I have 18% from the Gladiator's 2-piece and 25% physical damage from the Bloodstained Chivalry's 2-piece. And I've also added the 8 additional hits of the 40% multiplier to a total of 662.5% skill multiplier. Now, all we have to do is click on the poo, and we get 28,870 damage. So let's punch that into our spreadsheet real quick. And then we add a percentage increase tab, which compares the DPS to the top DPS option. And we have this information. So before moving on to Klee, we can see that the Crescent Pike with the 2-piece Bloodstain and 2-piece Gladiators is by a substantial margin the best DPS option that we have for ZhongLi's normal attack. And it's doing an admirable 13,223 DPS. So we can also see that the Vortex Vanquisher loses about 34% DPS while using the normal attack, even while using the Gladiator's 4-piece set. So that's a pretty substantial loss in DPS, but it does give us the stronger shield. Now the Primordial Jade at 7 stacks does a little bit better than the Vortex Vanquisher, but still about 27.5% less than the Crescent Pike. And finally the Deathmatch, unfortunately, when it comes to using the normal attack, simply doesn't compare. Now if we do that same process for Klee with the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Wind, and we use the proper skill multipliers, and let's give her 2-piece Gladiators with 2-piece Crimson Witch of the Flames, maximize elemental damage, weapon refine 1 since it's a 5-star weapon, and just click maximize damage, and there you go. So you have about 17,750 damage. So after doing all this for Klee at C1 and her DPS options, we end up with this chart. And let's also compare Klee's DPS options to ZhongLi's best DPS option, which is the Crescent Pike. And we can see that Klee still does a substantial amount more DPS, and this doesn't include her skill damage and burst, which skyrocket her DPS levels. Even the best DPS option for ZhongLi, which currently I believe is the 5-hit normal cancel with the Crescent Pike, doesn't outdamage Klee's simple 2-hit hop cancel, and we're not even factoring in stacks from Lost Prayer, we're not factoring in charged attack hop spam, and we're not factoring in skills and the burst. Now this puts ZhongLi in an awkward place. If we take a look at the artifacts for ZhongLi's Crescent Pike build to achieve these levels of damage, we can see how there is no HP in here at all. Everything is attack, percent crit rate, crit damage, some flat attack, and I guess some elemental mastery, where the algorithm doesn't know what to put those points into. What that means is that ZhongLi's shield will actually be very, very squishy, and it kind of defeats the purpose of him being a brawler, while still doing less DPS with a very flimsy shield than a character like Klee. Also keep in mind that in order to keep Crescent Pike's active ability up, he has to be constantly collecting elemental orbs. In order to do that, you probably have to spam his E skill, which I'm assuming drops an elemental orb on hit every 4 seconds. However, the problem with that is that ZhongLi will not even have a shield up while he's doing that, unless of course you have ZhongLi's constellation 4 or whatever that adds a shield when he drops the meteor. I don't remember which constellation, but you know what I'm talking about. This means that you have a squishy DPSer with no shield spamming his elemental E ability while still doing a lot less DPS than a character like Klee. So knowing all this, where does that leave us? Well, seeing that the build for ZhongLi with the Crescent Pike requires all offensive stats on his artifacts, ZhongLi's shield and burst damage are probably going to be kind of flimsy. Now, since main carries like Klee far outperform even ZhongLi's best DPS option with the Crescent Pike, this leads me to ask how effective is ZhongLi as a bruiser type character? Well, if we want a beefy shield, we'll want to use the Vortex Vanquisher with the Bolide set. Now, even at 5 stacks on the Vortex Vanquisher, we're looking at DPS numbers that are roughly 1/3 of Klee's. You know, as I mentioned, Klee with her burst up and her skills is going to be doing a lot more DPS. So this leaves us in an awkward situation. If ZhongLi stays on the field with a beefy shield, he'll do maybe half the amount of damage as someone like Klee. Alternatively, with the Crescent Pike, he pretty much has to go shieldless, or play with a really flimsy shield, and would still be doing noticeably less damage than a carry like Klee. So this leads me to conclude that ZhongLi as a main carry is actually really awkward, and the weapon Vortex Vanquisher is a particularly awkward weapon. While on the field doing all your attacks, ZhongLi isn't doing as much DPS, and to maximize the benefits from Vortex Vanquisher, you have to be on the field using it and not doing as much DPS. Now if you use the Bolide with this weapon, although he can absorb 60% more damage on a shield, let me ask you this. Why not simply switch to another character, absorb 37.5% less damage, and do twice as much DPS? So this leaves, in my opinion, the Vortex Vanquisher carry build with ZhongLi to not really have a real role in a team. So I present to you 3 builds that I think are the most viable. Build number 1 is the Beefy HP shield. Pretty much just put HP on everything, and if you're able to, get some crit rate, crit damage, and some attack percent to make the most out of his meteor damage. This playstyle is to simply switch in, hold E to get his shield, drop the meteor to petrify, and then swap out to DPS. This gives your DPS a good probably 14 seconds even after the petrify ends with ZhongLi's shield still up. For the artifact sets, I would run the Archaic Petra 4-piece because you're likely switching ZhongLi in after your main carry has done some damage and applied their element to them, at which you can create a crystal and then pick that up for the nice elemental damage boost. Alternatively, the Noblesse Oblige 4-piece set is also very good because you can simply drop his ult, boost your party's attack, and then switch out. So the best weapon for this is likely to be energy regen weapons because you'll want him to get his ult up as much as possible. And that would include weapons like the Skyward Spear, followed by things like Favonius and maybe Sacrificial Lance. Other weapons that would be good for this are just weapons that boost his burst damage, which include the Primordial Jade, the Vortex Vanquisher, the Deathmatch, and yeah. But that being said, just being a shield battery and a petrifier isn't very glorious. The second build is the one that I'm most interested in to see the potential of, and that is what I'll call Mage ZhongLi. If you have Constellation 1 ZhongLi, and with Traveler and with Ningguang, you can have up to, I believe, 5 geostructures, all of them pulsating for 54.4% geo damage per tick, which each tick from my observation is about 2 seconds each, and each pulsate from each source can do damage to a single target. So that means if the geostructures are optimally placed in such a way where you have an unfortunate enemy sandwiched between all of them, they will be getting hit 5 times every single pulsate. And what's crazy about this is that this is a drop and run type of damage, so it's basically a turret, and I believe it can cause crystallized reactions as well, dropping a ton of shields. So this is a bit more active playstyle than the previous version, and there is potential to do a lot of damage with it. Now we would have to theory craft just how much damage this build can do, and unfortunately I didn't have enough time to get to that for this video. Stay tuned for a future video where I may do that. Now unfortunately, for this to really shine, you probably need C1 ZhongLi, and honestly, ideally C3 ZhongLi, because that's the one that gives him +3 skill points in his E ability, which will drastically increase the damage and efficacy of this build. For artifacts, I would recommend the Archaic Petra 2-piece with the Gladiator 2-piece for the most damage, or the Archaic Petra 4-piece to pick up an elemental crystal and then boost the elemental DPSer that might come in with the shield. Now as for weapons, just things that boost damage like the Primordial Jade, the Vortex Vanquisher, and the Deathmatch. So the last but not least build is the physical carry ZhongLi build, and we've already gone through this extensively, but you'll want a Crescent Pike with 2 pieces of Bloodstained Chivalry and 2 pieces of Gladiators. You could opt out for significantly less damage, but more durability with the Bolide 4-piece. I personally would recommend that if you're going this route, you may as well just go and do as much damage as possible, so go with the higher DPS options. And for the weapon, you have the 4-star Crescent Pike. So yeah, that was my opinion on the upcoming hero ZhongLi and how I plan to build him. So a couple things that this video did not cover in terms of assessing whether or not ZhongLi will be a great main carry are his charge attack and also his geostructure resonance damage. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this analysis and learned something useful from it. You guys have been incredible to my YouTube channel, and I do read all the comments, so please let me know if I've overlooked anything, and also how you plan to build ZhongLi. Now if this video hits 1,000 likes, I will release an alpha version of the Damage Maximizer web app to the public. And I'll also make that announcement here on my channel, so be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss it. And finally, most importantly, take everything I've said with a grain of salt. This is just one man's opinion and analysis on the upcoming hero ZhongLi. So this video was just my best attempt to analyze him and how I plan to build him. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again. This is I Want to Lose Gaming, signing out.